mean, self-compassion has helped me to live and lead with brave, empowered clarity. And the self-compassion break that I described, so that includes the 3 components of self-compassion. And so it's mindfulness, awareness of the present moment without judgment, common humanity, and then self-kindness.
I think it's also about, it's not that you're going to get rid of suffering in your life. You're always going to have difficulties, right? But it's how you learn to deal with those difficulties. That's really what self-compassion is all about. Because what we say a lot is, it's not about making you feel better. It's what you do when you're feeling bad. So just give yourself some comfort feeling bad when something isn't going the way you want it to go.
And I think about the pause. How do you tap in and tap out? How do you cultivate a little space to pause? Give yourself a little space to breathe so that you can assess what's going on in the system and then move forward in ways that align with values and intention.
Self-compassion is a muscle that we exercise, because if you're suddenly in a very stressful situation at work, it's not like you can just switch on and, let me be self-compassionate if you haven't practiced it, right? It's not. So you have to have this practice to be able to just, like Barbara said, just give yourself that space and figure out what to do. And
Future Hacker, Life, Path, Future.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Future Hacker. I'm your host, Maria Taide, and today we have an inspiring roundtable discussion about self-compassion with those 2 incredible women who are transforming leadership and storytelling through the power of self-compassion. Our first guest is Barbara Behr. She's a community organizer, youth advocate, and systems change leader. With this impressive career that includes 13 years at the Children's Defense Fund and leadership roles at Harvard Kennedy School, Barbara is now pursuing a Doctor of Education Leadership at Harvard. Her dedication to self-compassion in leadership is inspirational, and she's here to share her journey and insights. And I'm going to tell you guys, she's definitely a very, very special person, super kind. Barbara, it's amazing to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm great, Maria. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, and thank you so much. Deeply honored to be on this podcast and to reflect on self-compassion with you and Mari.
And joining Barbara, we have Mariana Behr, a storytelling and strategic engagement expert who helps clients turn low visibility projects into success stories. She holds a master in public administration from the Harvard Kennedy School. For the past 13 years, Mariana has been deeply involved in the Olympic movement, consulting for the International Olympic Committee and multiple host cities, including Tokyo 2020 and Paris 2024. As head of engagement for the Rio 2016 Games, she led key programs but faced severe burnout, and she's definitely talking about that today with us, which led her to discover the transformative power of self-compassion. So recently, she has embraced Barbara's passion for self-compassion, studying this vital topic and conducting impactful workshops together. So, guys, if you've been following us, mental health is a very important topic, which every time I can, I cover. And, that's the reason that I wanted to cover self-compassion, especially because that's a term that is not as much heard today. And I'm pretty sure, it's a future trend topic, a current topic, and definitely something that is going to be even more important in the future. Mari, it's amazing to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you know what? Let's start with Barbara. I think it's important for us to start with the basics, right? Could you please just define what's self-compassion all about and what it means to you personally and professionally?
Thank you so much, Maria. I've been working to deepen my self-compassion practice over the last 2 years, and I've been deeply influenced by Dr. Kristin Neff's work on fierce self-compassion. That compassion has a tender side and also a fierce, protective side that helps us to set healthy boundaries make positive changes in our lives, and speak out against injustice. I've been doing practices such as the Fierce Self-Compassion Break each day, where I can offer to myself whatever it is that I need to hear. And coming into a doctoral program, and losing a beloved parent in the last year, and also my daughter going off to college, I wanted to make sure that my sense of self-worth was not grounded outside of myself. And so I see self-compassion as my inner ally that I can call upon at any time to offer myself strength, courage, support, whatever it is that I need. And I found it transformational to see the impact of this practice over time. And a key question that Madi and I have talked about is, how do I talk to a friend? How do I treat a friend versus how do I treat myself? And in the past, I'm a very others-focused person. I'm in the social services industry, so I would focus on others, and I would breathe out, 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 but I would neglect to take the in breath, and I would feel depleted, and I would just feel like I had no reserves, and so I had to practice that self-compassion to offer myself love, care, compassion, whatever it is that I need, so that I can be a caring presence in the lives of others.
And you just said something very interesting here, that it's about doing that to yourself and figuring this out yourself instead of looking that into others, right? Because usually people try to look for either being courageous or being supportive. You try to look that for someone doing that for you, like your family or your friends, instead of searching for that yourself. So I want to dig deeper into that, but before that, Mari, is there anything you'd like to add? And I'm especially curious regarding also cultural differences, right? So you're Brazilian, you're here in Brazil. Barbara is in the US. When it comes to self-compassion and studying this topic, do you see any regional differences in how people approach that?
Thanks. I want to start off with a quote from the Dalai Lama that I love, which is, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want yourself to be happy, practice compassion. So, because compassion is really a muscle that we need to exercise, and the more we exercise, the more we can do it. And in terms of the cultural differences, I think sometimes in Brazil, the word compassion carries a very heavy religious connotation to it. So a lot of times I use connecting to your greatness instead of it. It's all about connecting to yourself, but there's other ways to talk about it that maybe are easier for people to digest.
Yes, that's a great point. When we try to translate that, which would be to compassion, sometimes we don't really are getting this meaning of connecting to yourself. So I think it's a good point of start here to the audience that are not so used to this term. So you're talking about connecting to your greatness, right? And something that I felt when I was talking to both of you, when we got to know each other, is that I felt so strongly this kindness coming from you. And which made me wonder that you need to be somewhere really good to be able to do that. Because even the terms that you use, Barbara, which is, building boundaries, for example, you gave this example, right? And knowing, how to stop and protecting yourself. This can come from a place of kindness, but this can come from a place of being defensive and being aggressive, right? When it comes about protecting yourself. So how to be in this place and how to practice that so you're able to do it in a way that you're not being selfish, which is completely different, right? Connecting to yourself and being selfish is different things. So not being selfish, and also being in a place that you're actually being kind and empathic, having empathy to the others instead of being defensive and aggressive as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can share some reflections on that and invite Madi to join as well. I mean, self-compassion has helped me to live and lead with brave, empowered clarity. and the self-compassion break that I described. So that includes the three components of self-compassion. And so it's mindfulness, awareness of the present moment without judgment, common humanity, and then self-kindness. And so I have a practice where I will walk through each of those components. I'll call in a moment of difficulty, and Mari and I have been doing workshops around this. Call in a moment of difficulty, nothing too big, 3 or 4 on a 10-point scale, and just acknowledge it. I mean, all of us are facing some kind of difficulty. This is a moment of difficulty, and just to acknowledge it without judgment. And then we move into common humanity. But life is full of difficulties. I'm not the first or the last to experience a setback. Others have felt this way too. I am not alone. And then self-compassion, to offer myself whatever it is that I need to hear. You got this. I've got your back. We're going to make it through. May I have kindness. May I be strong. May I live in abundance, whatever it is that I need to hear. And doing that practice, no one has to know I'm doing this. I can do it, between meetings, whenever I need to. Doing this practice has helped me to proceed with fortitude and steadiness, to cultivate this well of strength that I can then offer that loving kindness to others from a deep-rooted place.
I love that. Mari, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's also about, it's not that you're going to get rid of suffering in your life. You're always going to have difficulties, right? But it's how you learn to deal with those difficulties. That's really what self-compassion is all about. Because what we say a lot is, it's not about making you feel better. It's what you do when you're feeling bad. So just give yourself some comfort when you're feeling bad, when something isn't going the way you want it to go.
So, talking about that, so let's talk about your journey, right? So you said that you had this intensive burnout in your last, in your professional experience, and that made you stop, right? Could you walk us through what happened?
Yeah, so the work for the Olympics was very intense, so it did lead to burnout afterwards. And I went on this journey to try to reconnect to myself. And I tried different things. I went on an Inca trail. I worked with shamans and different things. But what really helped me was this 3-year-old girl. She was in a dance studio. And every time she looked at herself in the mirror, she'd blow herself a kiss. And that just made me think, wow, this kid really loves herself. And do I love myself? Maybe. No, I don't think I do. And why not? And it just occurred to me that we're not really taught to love ourselves and to be kind and gentle to ourselves. We're taught to do it to others, but not to ourselves. And that's what really started me on this journey for self-compassion, which is, wow, there is another way to treat myself. Like Barbara was saying in the beginning, how do we treat a friend versus how do we treat ourselves? Most of the time, we're so harsh with ourselves that if we treated a friend like that, we probably wouldn't have any friends. So I just started on a journey to be kinder and gentler to myself. And I just found it so amazing that now I just want to tell others that, hey, there is another way to connect to yourself. Because I think a lot of times we're actually in a toxic relationship with ourselves and we don't really know it.
That's so true. And, and then I understand that it's something that you can actually practice, right? You mentioned mindfulness. So mindfulness is a term that, people are ready to use, especially because it was very trendy a while ago, right? You talked about common humanity, and you talked about kindness. And those are things that, they definitely should be no-brainers in our lives. But the thing is that when you're out there, it's something that is so rare for you to see. And especially when we talk about the corporate world, how the corporate world works today, and how toxicity and aggressiveness in leadership is actually, in many places, incentivized instead of the opposite. And we see that in some companies. And as we've been talking frequently here in Future Hacker, I don't think that it's something that it's even going to be, people are not going to accept in the future, especially when we talk about, this younger generation that see work very differently as our, grandparents and parents and even us. We still accept a lot in our generation, right? So how do you see companies, when you go talk to companies, I don't know if you talk to companies or if it's more targeted to people, how are people open to that and how are companies open to that nowadays?
I'm not sure companies are open yet. I think they are opening up. And actually, Gallup has studies that prove that when a leader is compassionate, that helps with retention and with employee engagement. So I think part of the work that we're doing is to just, again, spread this notion that there is another way to lead, which is through compassion. It's a movement that's still starting.
And what about you, Barbara? So do you see that differently in the US? Is it on the same stage? And how do you see not only the acceptance, but even as I don't like using as a trend, but as a future, really, right? Do you think we'll be able? Because when you both just were talking about the definition, my brain interpret that as just a spiritual evolution, and that's what I use to myself. I'm not like it. The path to spiritual evolution, and I'm so far from that yet.
Yeah, we've got work to do. I mean, I appreciate your naming the toxicity, the aggressiveness in organizations. This epidemic of loneliness. I appreciate all you've done to shine a light on mental health and wellness and collective well-being. I have done executive education sessions for women leaders in higher education, and I have worked at Harvard Kennedy School, and to be frank, I have experienced immense downward pressure, a lot of fear and anxiety. Harvard is a pretty intense place.
Yes.
And so it really is countercultural, and it's about having the strength to counter. When I was leading a team at Harvard Kennedy School, and now in my cohort at the Doctor in Education Leadership Program, I've become like one of the elders. I was always one of the young leaders, now I'm sort of the elder of the cohort, to try to create that spaciousness, to try to create a little space to breathe. I try to create that for my cohort. I share these practices wherever I go. I've done them in executive education session for women leaders. And I think about the pause. How do you tap in and tap out? How do you cultivate a little space to pause? Give yourself a little space to breathe so that you can assess what's going on in the system and then move forward in ways that align with values and intention. I'm very influenced by Viktor Frankl's work. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is your capacity to choose your response. In that choice lies your growth and your freedom. So deepening the space between stimulus and response so that you're not falling into a reactive loop, doing what others think you ought to be doing, but moving forward in your path. And so I've found that listening deeply to self, creating a little space to pause, tapping in and tapping out. What does that look like for you? What does the pause look like for you is some of the things I've been thinking about.
And I have a feeling that giving ourselves this space to pause is something so rare nowadays, because even when we have the time and the chance to pause, we're just with the phones on our hands and on TikTok or whatever, waste of brain space we're doing. We're just stopping and disconnecting and then looking at the sky and just breathing, right? I just feel that our brains are just like running nonstop. And that's so important to be reminding ourselves how important that is, right? Mari, is there anything you'd like to add here?
Yeah, I think, again, it's important to remember that this is a muscle we need to exercise. Self-compassion is a muscle that we have to exercise, because if you're suddenly in a very stressful situation at work, it's not like you can just switch on and, let me be self-compassionate if you haven't practiced it, right? It's not. So you have to have this practice to be able to just, like Barbara said, just give yourself that space and figure out what to do. And the other thing is you can use compassion as a moral compass as well. And you can, when you stop and you breathe, you can think, okay, what is the compassionate thing to do here? Which again, takes practice.
Yes, I get it. And, I'm curious, so Barbara, I asked Mari, but I didn't ask you. So how did that get into your life? So was it also in a space from a personal experience that you had? And was that just a personal interest that you had? How did you chase it?
I went through a transformational coaching process about 2 years ago, tapping into body-based knowledge. I've never done anything like this before. Tapping into heart knowledge. What is a passion I want to bring into the world? Belly knowledge, what drives me. And from that to write a vision of the work life I would love and only what I would love. And the coach that I was working with had this really beautiful method of moving towards joy-based goals grounded in life intentions. And so my life intentions were to be more spiritually connected in a very inclusive sense, a part of a community of practice, so greater connection, and then adventure. And so I was in terms of spiritual community and community practice, I found this work on self-compassion, and it really spoke to me. And I noticed the way that I speak to myself, as Madi was saying earlier, it's changed over time. Like I can look back to a situation where I did not feel seen, valued, respected the way I should have been, and I can go back to that moment and I could say, Sweet Pea, I'm so sorry that happened to you. You didn't deserve to be treated like that. You deserve to be cherished. You deserve to be in an environment where you're going to thrive. Or environments, where I failed, like things didn't go the way I hoped they could. I could say, you know what? You did the best that you could in a really challenging set of circumstances. And just look at all you've learned and look at how you've grown. So I marvel at how the way that I've talked to myself has changed. And that influences the way I talk to my family, the way I talk to others I engage with, the way I do my work. It's like power flows from within. So cultivating that well of self-compassion really ripples out.
That's great. I remember when we were talking as well, you both told me about this concept of backdraft in self-compassion and how to navigate it. Can we cover that? What is this backdraft and what do people need to do about it?
Yeah, sure. So when I started doing this work, it can bring up a lot of emotions. So there's actually a firefighting term, backdraft. There's a term for it, firefighting term, backdraft. When you fight a fire, you don't open the front doors of the house. You poke holes in the side of the house because the flames would be too overwhelming. And I had kept a closed heart for a long time. So when I started doing this work, started opening my heart a little bit, it just felt really overwhelming. And so if you are experiencing backdraft, that's totally normal. A lot of people experience that. And what you can do is offer yourself self-compassion to go gently. I think that's a key takeaway that Madi and I talk about. No matter what happens, may we all be kinder, gentler, and more compassionate with ourselves. And that's also the reason why when you do the self-compassion break, you call in a moment of difficulty 3 or 4 on a 10-point scale. Not something too overwhelming that's going to shut you down, but 3 or 4 on a 10-point scale. And I resonate deeply with what Pema Chodron says about see challenging situations as your teacher that builds skill and capacity to handle something greater. I've been doing this for 2 years now. I could not have imagined how instrumental this would be, foundational it would be with the loss of my beloved mother, 9 months ago, unexpectedly. I mean, I am so grateful that I did this compassion because as Madi said earlier, I built this foundation so that when this happened, during the first week of school, my daughter had just left for college 2 weeks before. That's a lot all at once.
Yeah.
But I was able to move through with steadiness, with fortitude, because I had these practices in place. I also gave myself a lot of space, and was gentle with myself as I moved through this time. So that's a little bit about my journey. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you for sharing. And I'm so sorry about your loss, Barbara.
Thank you.
And Mari, and how is this affecting your this journey that you're building on self-compassion and all those workshops that you've been doing with Barbara as well? You're also a storyteller, right? How are you merging those two concepts? And how can creating this space to pause and listen to your needs, enhancing communication skills and affecting all the storytelling processes that you're teaching people?
So for me, storytelling and self-compassion are very intertwined. First of all, I think that if you're not connected to yourself, how on earth can you expect to connect to others? So I think this work with self-compassion is very important if you want to be a great communicator. Another thing for great communicators is that you also have to be very good at deep listening. And deep listening mainly means just listening to what the other has to say without already thinking about how you're going to reply. So just really be present with that person. And to me, and this is my personal journey as well, when I started practicing self compassion, what I realized is as human beings, our underlying need is to feel loved, right? So everything we do in our lives is basically to be loved, right? And when we work with self-compassion and we start generating that love for ourselves, that really frees us up to be present with others, right? So when I'm talking to other people now, I feel less need for approval, although obviously I still need approval. We all do, right? But it's less. And so I can be with others and really listen to them and really understand what their needs are and what I can do to love them, right? To give them love in some shape or form. And when I say give them love, what I mean is give them respect, make them feel seen, make them feel understood. So that to me is so crucial as a storyteller that I think self-compassion is the foundation for storytelling.
Yes, absolutely. And Barbara, I know that you're also working on integrating self-compassion into school systems. You like tell me about it because it makes so much sense. And I've covered in the past. I did this episode about the loneliness epidemic, and it was supposed to be an episode about bullying, and then it got so much broader than that. And it makes so much sense talking about everything that is going on schools today. I mean, it has been going on already, but and how it's supposed to even be harder when it comes to this access to social media and new technologies. So how do you see that getting integrated to school systems and improving the interaction between students and teachers and even the administrators of the school?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Maria. I see a lot of possibilities in schools. I'm working with a school district now, and one of the challenges we're addressing is relational aggression. And there's a whole group of community leaders we're working with, and I really appreciate the courage of naming that relational aggression and improving school connectedness. And so we did some parent listening sessions, like very deep, open-hearted listening about what parents are experiencing, what young people are experiencing. And I genuinely believe we have to reweave the fabric of community. We have to learn how to be in healthy relationships with each other. And self-compassion is a key part of that. Learning to be kind, gentle, compassionate with ourselves, and then learning to be kind, gentle, and compassionate with others. Learning to communicate wants and needs. Learning to set healthy boundaries. We were learning that young people have so many strengths and assets themselves. Young people are coaching each other through relationships and help supporting young people. What's yours to hold? What's not yours to hold? Our young people are carrying a lot. So I think we've been through a lot with COVID. It's been a time of like compounded losses. It's been a time of extended challenge and collective trauma. It can also be a defining moment, a post-traumatic growth. And how do we come out of this? And I think self-compassion is a way forward of just starting to be kind, gentle, compassionate with ourselves and those around us, and then that rippling out.
So I'm curious, and that's a question to both of you. Let's begin with Mari. So how do you see technology playing a role on that? And the reason I ask is that if you're talking about schools, if you're talking about the new generations, that's no way out of it, right? It's just a part. It's going to increase. And as much as technology can be something that brings us together, bring the world together, literally, it can also play a role of making people really disconnected and lonely and believing in so many realities that are not real, right? And things that are just meant to be. And do you see more as something that could be an ally? How do you see this education around new technologies and mental health? And I did talk about in one of our trend reports, Horizons, how it was. I think it was in South by Southwest. People saying how those virtual glasses can be allies when talking about empathy and helping people just see what others see, like a disabled person, how they live, and how this can help us feel on their feet. So you have both sides, right? So in your view, do you see as an ally, and do we know how to use it as an ally, or do you see more as something that we really need to be aware of and somehow go along with it?
So technology, as we all know, has always a good side and a bad side. It depends how you use it, right? But ultimately, compassion is about connection, and it is about finding our common humanity. So I think there are ways that you can use technology to spread more compassion. Not sure if these are already in place. I think it's things that we still need to work on and develop, but I definitely think you can. You have to use technology. Everyone is connected nowadays, so you have to use it. There's no way around it, really.
Yeah, there's no way around it. What's your thought, Barbara?
I believe the revolution is in the relationship. I really like, how might we shift to focus on relationships? I think so. Technology can be a bridge to deepen relationship. I mean, we have a practice in our cohort of joy spotting. Joy spotting, which we define as the intentional practice of capturing and savoring moments of joy and beauty in our everyday lives and relationships. So we use our WhatsApp chat, to share these joy spotting photos as we go about our day, and it's just really uplifting to see all these pictures of joy, of things in nature or like family. I've done trainings before where I'll just say, all right, everyone has a device. So pull up your device and find something that brings you joy. And in small groups, trios or duos, and people will share something. And a lot of beautiful, then we hold space to debrief. A lot of beautiful stories come out of nature, community, family. So as Amadi said, there's pluses and minuses both ways, right? So there's pitfalls to avoid, like an over-reliance on technology. But how might we use technology to bolster relationships, to spread joy, to spread practices like self-compassion is some of what I've been thinking about.
I was going to say, I think after COVID, everyone is craving for more connection, right?
Yes.
That and everything that people ask for and do. So it's ripe to create more connection through technology, I guess.
Yes. And when Barbara was talking, it reminded me this term that you use when we first met, which is the small things, right? The small things that bring you joy. And I absolutely love that. And how we just let them overpass the small things and how, if we really pay more attention, they're more aware about it, how those small things can be. Bring us joy. And okay, so Mari, you talked about cultivating this habit of celebrating our greatness. So is there anything, how would you encourage our listeners to try to feed that more into us? How is there any practice, is there any tip, is there any advice, because people don't talk about that at all, right? And even the small accomplished sometimes they just pass by. So how is it to celebrate our own greatness?
Yeah, I think the thing with being aware of your greatness is just being aware of what it is that you can offer to the world, because we all have something incredible we can offer to the world. And a lot of times we're not connected to that. So I think the first thing is just to think of, what am I outstanding at? And if you don't know that, ask your close friends. And I've asked my close friends, and it was beautiful, the feedback that I got. So I recommend doing that just so that you're aware of what it is that you can offer to the world. And not from a place of arrogance, but just that, wow, this is what I can offer to the world. And look at how many people I can help with this. So I think that's the first step. And the second one is just create a little ritual for yourself where you can just really celebrate yourself every day. And I'm going to share with you mine, which is something that happened very spontaneously. I just woke up one day, just feeling great about myself. And I just went like this. I put my hands here under my chin, and I was like, and honestly, every time I do that, I just feel amazing. So it's my little ritual, and it's just for me. I don't care what other people think about it, but it's just for me, and it's something that brings me joy and just really connects with me with myself in the mornings. So I recommend coming up with your own way of just remembering that you're here on this earth to just, spread joy and help others in some shape or form, and just celebrate yourself for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love this ritual. And that's what's going to be one of my questions to you guys. So you just gave one, right? So Barbara, is there any advice that you could share with our listeners so they can maybe try to apply on their lives to at least start this journey? Because I understand it's a journey, right? It's something that is part of our as the term that I use, spiritual evolution or whatever it is. Which advices would you have?
I would say there are a lot of resources available. I mean, the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion has beautiful courses. We've both been through the courses. They have circles of practice where you can do the self-compassion break and other practices with people from all over the world. But I would say at an essential level, I think an opportunity is that we can anchor ourselves in the universal wish to be loved. Like, love is the most powerful, intrinsic, natural force that there is, and it always wins out in the end. It always does. And I remember when I started this, for like 2 weeks, I did this intention at the beginning of each day. Affirmations. I'm surrounded by love, and I love myself. Just as all beings wish to be loved, so do I wish to be loved. And I did this for 2 weeks, and now it's actually become long. It's been like a year now of doing this. If you start your day with that intention, just as all beings wish to be loved, so do I wish to be loved, watch what happens to your life. So I do that. And then as Mari, one of the parts of self-compassion is soothing touch. So you can, as you do your exercise, you can put your hands, on your cheeks. You can go like this. I like to do a fist with a palm, strength with love. And I can offer that care to myself. Just as all beings wish to be loved, so do I wish to be loved. And it's very powerful. It's very somatic for me to feel that loving energy, and then I can offer it to others.
I just want to share something else. Like, when I get really stressed, I pretty much forget to breathe. So I think another important exercise just to connect yourself is just to sometimes remember to breathe, even if it's only 3 deep breaths. What I've been doing is something I call treedom, which is breathing to trees around me. And that really helps me just reconnect to myself, because nature has, this amazing power that we forget to tap into. And the other thing is to kind of bless yourself and others in the morning as well. I find that really helps. Is you just think of someone and you just say to that person, may you be loved, may you feel happy, may you feel safe, whatever else you want to say. And then you say that to yourself as well. And I really like doing that practice as well once a day. It just really connects me with myself and with my intention of what it is that I want to do that day.
For people that are listening to us, they're not on our YouTube channel. So behind Mari, there's this garden, right? And she was actually going to do this interview right outside. And there was this beautiful view, right, Barbara? And she's in such a beautiful place. The thing is that I was just afraid that the sounds might not be good for people that are just listening to us. And then she came inside. But she was just talking about the trees, and she's just in a beautiful place. And I'm sure that the interview would even have a different energy around. But, unfortunately, we had to prioritize the sound for people that are on the podcast. And she mentioned sound of the water. So, too bad that we couldn't do that outside. But for sure, it was a whole different energy there. So listen, we're getting to the end, and for our listeners that are used to having me, all those scientists and biotechnology and all those technologies and health tech and fintech, I hope you enjoyed this pause. I'm constantly talking about how important education is and how important mental health is, And I really thought that I should give this space to talk about ourselves because, at the end, as much as we talk about evolution and innovation and technology, at the very end, it's about us being healthy and being on the right place and being able to be compassionate to ourselves and to others. And without that, we really can't build a better future. So I thought it was important to give this pause and talk about that and talk about love. And we never talked about that. How come, right? So, I would love, both of you to have a final message to the listeners. We're getting to the end now. So the last word is yours. So please. So Barbara, if you'd like to do it first, and then Mari.
Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you so much for holding this space. I mean, we have power with how we use space, and that you chose to dedicate the podcast to this issue. I deeply appreciate you. And to the listeners, I hope you will be more authentically you. I just, as Mari said earlier, like each person has unique gifts and a special light to share. And there really is magic when we gather in purpose and let our light shine. And I just hope that no matter what happens, you will be kinder, gentler, more compassionate with yourself, and sending good wishes in all directions with deep gratitude for this time together.
And I just want to say, celebrate your greatness each and every day, because you are a generator of joy and love. And if the more we're connected to that, the more we can spread this joy from the inside out. And that's how you change the environment around you. And I truly, truly believe that is how we're going to change the world. If we're more self-compassionate, then we can help others also become more self-compassionate. And that is really what the world needs right now. So this is a revolution that I invite you to join.
Thank you, Mari. Thank you, Barbara. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Future Hacker. Life. Path. Future.